This morning I was going to put some time and effort to harvest some sea berries out in the garden, and I thought it might be of interest for some folks who are not familiar with this amazing plant to see what they're all about. It's this ridiculously wonderful citrus-like, oily, fatty fruit of the north, very cold hardy. And I thought I would take you on the meander. It's such a jungle in this part of the garden, and they're doing really well over here. You can see this is a male plant growing, has no fruit on them, but helped provide the pollen to create the fruit set on this whole crew. This is sea berry. What an amazing being. We planted this thicket in here back in 2018, I believe. It's 2023 now, so this is about 6 years of growth. It takes a little while for them to get up to speed, but this is a pretty good image of just how packed they can be. There's quite literally thousands of fruits on each plant, maybe. Definitely many hundreds. And so I thought I would look at a couple different varieties, talk about some of the things that we love about them, and some suggestions about cultivation and practice. We'll make some more videos about some of the harvesting techniques we're starting to explore now that we have so many to work with. But let me introduce you to a couple neat plants here. This one I'm looking at in front of me, there's two of them here. These are both female cultivars named Cerola, and this happens to be one of the earlier varieties that ripens for us. And they are definitely getting into peak ripeness here. The color is well developed, and then we also find that the fruits tend to pop if they're a little bit overripe. Overripe is a beautifully developed flavor, but then it's harder to pick. Ooh, just popped one in my mouth. Basically the size of a Tic Tac. Imagine something like a tangerine and grapefruit mixed together. A lot of citrus notes. Cerola in particular, though, carries just a little hint of some tropical fruit in there, like a passion fruit or something. Really unique. I know Juan considers this his favorite. And so this is one of the earlier varieties we work with. The other day we were out at our Trumansburg site, the larger site, and Sasha was picking Orange Glow, which is a relatively new variety for us, and we are finding that one to be extremely deeply colorful, very large fruit, pretty sweet, really juicy, and extremely early. Orange Glow seems to be the earliest one we have. Cerola is a close second. This variety in here, which is named Radiant, is considered a favorite of a bunch of folks that we know. I know my friend Ben Falk up in Vermont. This is where maybe I got these cuttings from him or from Buzz Fervor. I can't remember. A lot of sea berry production happening there. Very large fruit. A little bit later to ripen. You can see a lot further in there are still kind of yellow. They have good flavor even when they're a little bit more pale, less colorful, but it's nicer to pick them when they start getting a bit more color. And Radiant is cool because it has a transition from a dark red at the top to like a nice yellow at the bottom. Good average, nice, tart flavor, good twangy flavor to it. This plant has gotten so spready and expansive that we'll end up going through and using pruners to cut back a lot of this. And then this way we can pick in the comfort of the shade or even freeze them to pop them off later on. It makes it very easy and fast to harvest. But these are not quite ripe, so we're just gonna let them be for a little bit. These are two more of the Cerola that I was talking about before, but they're in even more full sun. And so they've ripened a little bit before the other patch I was looking at. So my friend Chelsea, or our friend Chelsea, and I were picking from this bush yesterday. We spent probably 35 or 40 minutes picking from here, and you'd barely even notice, except you can see where all the little scars are. We got maybe 1.5 gallons or 2 of fruit, which will yield about 1 gallon or more of juice, which will all be turned into ice creams or ice cubes that we can enjoy throughout the rest of the summer and into the winter. Extremely profoundly medicinal fruit. On the description, I'll put a link or a few links to some of the food value, the medicine value of this plant. I'm over here on the south side of our fence line, over at our neighbor's spot, and this is where we've installed some sea berry back in 2020 from relatively large runners. In fact, I made a video about taking those divisions from our garden and transplanting them out here. And a few years later, they have not only established extremely robustly, but also have cropped heavily for 2 years. This year it's just phenomenal crop. And they're starting to actively sucker, which is a really simple way to get photocopies of these plants. So here is a varietal called Orange Energy. Makes extremely large, very yellow, like a goldeny yellow color fruit, and tends to ripen slowly. So these are definitely pickable right now, but we might try to give them another week or two to fully develop. And Orange Energy seems to be a particularly suckery type. Lots of suckers in there. I try to come through early in the season with a weed whacker or a push mower and get all the herbaceous vegetation down before the new suckers of the seaberry pop up. And so since this is all a block of Orange Energy in here, I know that these suckers are going to be that variety as well. There's lots and lots in here, so I'll try to weed, but for the most part they'll pop through. Lots in here. We'll wait till they go dormant in the fall, and then we can dig them up and have them either transplant out into the landscape or available for folks locally. We do plan to propagate enough of these to start shipping at some point, but we're still finding we want to expand more and more in our landscape, and so we don't have an overabundance of plants to sell. We're interested more in planting at this point. Here's a great example of a very productive Orange Energy variety. You can see it's a lot less red. The Corolla over there is a lot oranger. That orange glow is almost red, and this one tends to be a little bit more yellow, a little bit more pale, but still quite flavorful. I had a branch set in the last 2 years that expanded across this pathway, and I'd like to be able to get through here again. So when we're ready to harvest, we'll actually take loppers and probably cut the plant more or less right through here, and then be able to take all of these summer softwood cuttings and propagate them. I think I talked about this in a past video. If so, I'll link to it, and if not, we'll make a new one this year. But it's a really nice opportunity to do a harvest of the fruit while doing the management of the plant, some of the pruning work we want to do anyway, and get the additional yield of summer softwood cuttings that root really, really readily with intermittent mist and decent lightweight soil media. Sasha's actively involved in a couple experiments right now of different ways of processing the juice into sorbet, which has been one of our favorites, and we'll make some documentation of that as time allows and share. That's probably one of the highest value yields of this is a sorbet ice cream, but she's also going to be experimenting with a heavy whipping cream centered solution for making ice cream out of these, so a creamy citrusy thing. And ice cubes are always really simple to do as well. We press the juice with a slow grinding juicer so it actually macerates the seed, and then pour that juice into ice cube trays, put it in the freezer, and then we can move those over to bags and add them into our water all winter. I would guess that between our smaller site here, where we live on a half acre with our ever expanding production into our wonderful neighbor Ian space, and our 6 acre site, which is now getting some really mature production age seaberry, we might have somewhere between, I would venture a guess, 40 to 60 gallons worth of fruit that we can harvest, which would yield 40 or so gallons worth of probably some of the highest medicinal grade juice we could ever want in a cold climate. Seaberry is a miracle plant. I'll link in the description some nurseries that I know have plants. I don't mean to tempt folks and then not offer them, but we will offer them at scale at some point, but only after we've gotten to a point where we truly can't pack any more plants into the landscape. They're that valuable to us. But seaberry, pretty wonderful plant, and we'll share more notes as things unfold. For now, I gotta go pick.